What's going on, guys? It's Jeremy, and today we're going to talk about some considerations when you're BZOing or zeroing your weapon. So before I get started, guys, I want to let you know that we are having our Medical Response 1 class once again in Fort Thomas, Kentucky on Sunday, August 28th. The price of the class is $75. If you're a returning student and you have a certificate on file with us, it is only $50 to come and receive sustainment training. Just kind of an incentive for our prior students and supporters to hopefully come back and continue to get more training. And I plan to kind of make that a thing across all of the training courses that we hopefully have in the future. Other ways to support the channel, guys: like, subscribe, share this content, do all of the things. It really helps us in the algorithms. So, BZOing and zeroing rifles. What do those two terms mean? I came up when I was in the Marine Corps. BZO is kind of a slang term for field zero in a sense. It's not necessarily super detailed in a sense. You're kind of getting a general guess and or estimate of your zero. You know, it's kind of quick and in a hurry. You just want to make sure that it's good enough. You know, for example, if you have something like an aim point or a holographic sight, you know, a red dot, stuff like that, you will BZO in the field your rifle potentially, just to get a general idea of where it's at. So, you know, you're shooting at a target at 50 or 100 yards, and you know, you just want to make sure that your grouping is the size of the fist. All right, good enough, good to go. Whereas zeroing is something we all kind of traditionally relate to a little bit more, you know, with dedicated magnified optics and stuff like that, rifle scopes, your hunting weapons, all that kind of stuff. That still stands true. So what are some considerations for this? The biggest thing that goes into this is going to be your ammo consideration. You know, if you are predominantly going to run, you know, 5.56, 55 grain green tip in your AR for whatever reason you see you using your AR platform weapon, you don't want to come out here and then zero with 62 grain 5.56, because your zeros are going to hold different. You know, that grain count is going to hold a zero a little bit different than others. Higher quality ammo will give you a better zero or more accuracy than a lower quality ammo. You know, shooting steel versus brass, all of these types of things kind of go into that. And that goes true amongst, you know, a lot of calibers: 7.62, 5.56, you know, 300 blackout, 30-06, even all the way down to 22 potentially. So keep that into consideration, is that ammo is a very big portion that goes into zeroing your weapon. Another big factor for my, you know, assault rifle guys is cans, suppressors. A lot of people don't know that when you shoot a weapon suppressed and unsuppressed, your target impact will be different. So if you zero your 16-inch AR without a can, and then you turn around and you put a can on it and you run it like that all the time, no matter what, no exceptions, your zero is going to be different. So you should zero to begin with your rifle with your can, with your suppressor on. I very much encourage you to go ahead and zero your rifle with no suppressor on, and put your suppressor on and do it again. More times than not, there's going to be a difference. Is it going to be a huge difference? No, it's not going to be a huge difference. Could an inch matter when it matters most? Maybe it could. Another thing, guys, that a lot of people seem to forget is the principles of zeroing and or BZOing their rifles. I see a lot of guys that will just drop to a knee and just randomly start shooting, or they'll stand up at 50 yards and they'll start shooting. You're adding a lot of human error into that. The whole point of zeroing and BZOing your optic and your weapon is you want to remove as much human error from everything as possible, because human error is what messes things up. We want to be mechanically, you know, as dialed in as we can. So getting to a good prone position, you can sit at a table, use sandbags, use your range bag, whatever it is. Give yourself a good, solid position to shoot from. Something that does not require you to rely on your marksmanship fundamentals to an extent. You know, as far as the stabilization and the balance of the weapon, that should be able to be implemented through other means. Now, when you come into, you know, sight picture, trigger control, and all that kind of stuff, yeah, your marksmanship comes back into hand. And another thing, guys, I notice people don't do is round consistency. If you were going to zero your weapon with 3 rounds now, and then 5 rounds, and then 2 rounds, and then 4 rounds, you're all over the place. And your shot groups, it shouldn't matter, but your shot groups are going to be inconsistent. And as you're trying to make adjustments, you're adding more or taking away data that you have to adjust your optic. So if the very first time you shoot, you have 3 rounds, and they're all lower left within about a 2-inch group. Awesome, you make an adjustment, you fire again, now you only shoot 2 times. Well, now your data is less complete. You have less to create a hypothesis and or adjustment for your optic. So the biggest thing I always tell people is minimum 3 rounds, and then if you run 3 rounds on your first your first run 3 rounds all the way through until you're satisfied with your 0 root BZO. If you have the ammo, 5 rounds is even better, but you want to be consistent. That way you can effectively adjust your optic as you go.
So I decided to conduct an experiment. After BZOing my 11.5-inch Bravo Company AR with an EOTech 518, I thought we should show a demonstration of all the things that could possibly interfere with the accuracy or change the accuracy of your weapon, I should say. So I used 55 grain green tip 5.56 for all 3 of these demonstrations. The rounds you see with a single line through them, that was EOTech only, no magnifier, no suppressor, after the weapon had already been BZO'd. So pretty good grouping, less than an inch at this point at 50 yards. It's with a holographic or a red dot sight, it's really hard to really hone in on the actual center dots of targets like these, because the dot, your reticle at 50 yards, 100 yards is 2 or 3 inches big on this paper. So nonetheless, less than an inch grouping on that. The ones you see with a circle is with a magnifier. I utilize a Vortex magnifier on my rifle paired with my EOTech. And then the ones you see with the X through it was my suppressor with, again, the 55 grain green tip 5.56. And you'll see that no suppressor, no magnifier, just the rifle and the optic itself. We have a very good grouping, very tight. These two are even, touching butt to butt here. Then we add in the magnifier. And I don't know about everybody else, but my magnifier, both EOTech and Vortex in the past, always seems to have a little bit of a wiggle to it. It's not always perfectly steady and firm, even though it's seated well on the rail to my rifle. And then of course the suppressor, your suppressor 0 and or accuracy will always be different depending on your ammunition heavily than your non-suppressed 0. And then as you can see from this may be my grouping a little bit. I don't think it is, but I shoot lower significantly with my suppressor than I do unsuppressed. So these are just some things that, impact your 0 or your accuracy of your rifle. Again, the round and the quality of the round and the grain that you're using heavily impacts that. But adding other things like suppressors, magnifiers, things of that sort will also heavily dictate.
Another big thing to consider is, what is your optic capable of, or what is your optic designed to be zeroed at? For example, this EOTech specifically that I have on my rifle, there is 2 dots in the actual holographic sight picture itself. And for this one specifically, some of the EOTechs are different, some of the new ones have changed, yada, yada, yada. This EOTech specifically, the first top dot in that holographic sight is made for 50 yards. And then in theory, your bottom dot should be zeroed for 250 yards. I believe some of the EOTechs now, or some of the newer models, are 50 and then 300. But this one, at the time that I got it, as long as I'm not misspeaking, is 50 and 250 yards. Something like a, please excuse the massive trucks that drive by my house all day long. I have no control over them. If you do something like a magnified optic, like this 1:8 by Primary Arms, obviously it has I believe this one has the horseshoe reticle in it, because in it itself has the diamond tip in it. And you need to know, points of impact for different portions of your reticle. Then you go to more traditional magnified optics like this 1:12 on my old squirrel gun down there, the old 22, and you need to know, what are those points of impact going to be? So knowing your optic is just as important as everything else that goes into it. If you are one of those people that fall into the trend of zeroing at 33 yards or whatever have you, that's fine and dandy, but you just need to know how to adjust your rifle based on the distance and based on what the manufacturer originally planned for that, because your adjustments, your clicks on your elevation and your all those other things are going to differ based on what they write. So you can't just go out there and just start clicking away, because you'll be out there all day and you'll just be wasting ammo. We're not here to waste ammo, we're here to train. Ammo is very expensive right now. So take into consideration those types of things. As another tip, if you're running a holographic sight or a red dot sight on a rifle and you run a magnifier with it, zero your optic without the magnifier first. Because on some magnifiers you can adjust them to your optic, zero them almost in a sense yourself. So do not zero with your magnifier on, zero without the magnifier, and go from there. Everybody should be able to shoot at 100 yards without a bunch of magnification. If you can't, you need to practice, you need to buy a lot more ammo until you can do that, because that seems to be a lost art. That's all I've got, guys. Again, take into consideration and think about what you're doing before you do it. Come up with a plan. Make sure you have a safe place to do this. You have a good backstop. You have a stable shooting position. Measure out your distances to your target. If you have a rangefinder, great, fantastic. If not, walk it out old school style. Get a tape measure, whatever it may be. Like I said before, guys, medical class, August 28th, Sunday, Fort Thomas, Kentucky. $75 for new guys, $50 for returning students. As always, guys, train hard, train often.